The 1044 is brought to you by Chevron Delo 600 ADF Ultra Low Ash Diesel Engine Oil. It's time to kick some ash.
This week on the 1044, what are the latest trends with cargo theft and what can you do to protect your fleet?
Hey everybody, and welcome to the 1044, a weekly webisode from the editors here at CCJ. I'm Jason Cannon and my co-host on the other side is Matt Cole. 2020 was a weird year for everybody. We all had to adjust on the fly to this new normal. Some of us shifted to working from home, as you can kind of see here. Most of our buying habits changed a lot, and there are plenty of other things that we've all had to deal with. All of that led to a shift in cargo theft activity. Yeah, the bad guys, they were not immune from pandemic-inspired challenges that were evidenced by the fact that thieves began targeting different types of cargo than they have in previous years.
Since the last economic downturn in 2008, the hottest commodity for cargo thieves has been food and beverage products. They're easy to get rid of and difficult to trace because the evidence is consumed and disappears. When the majority of Americans started working from home last year, cargo thieves caught on to a new trend. I spoke with Scott Cornell, the National Transportation Practice Lead at Travelers, who talks about the shift in cargo theft trends last year. But before we hear from Scott, I'd like to take a second and tell you about the sponsor of this video, Chevron Lubricants.
Protecting your diesel engine and its after-treatment system has traditionally been a double-edged sword. The same engine oil that is so essential to protecting your engine's internal parts is also responsible for 90% of the ash that is clogging up your DPF and upping your fuel and maintenance costs. Outdated industry thinking still sees a trade-off between engine and emission system protection, and Chevron was tired of it. So they spent a decade of R&D developing a no-compromise formulation. Chevron Lubricants developed a new ultra-low ash diesel engine oil that is specifically designed to combat DPF ash clogging. Delo 600 ADF with OmniMax technology cuts sulfate ash by a whopping 60%, which reduces the rate of DPF clogging and extends DPF service life by 2.5 times. And just think what you can do with all the MPGs you're going to add from cutting your number of regens. But Delo 600 ADF isn't just about after-treatment. It provides complete protection, extending drain intervals by preventing oil breakdown. Before you had to choose between protecting your engine or your after-treatment system, and now you don't. 600 ADF from Delo with OmniMax technology, it's time to kick some ash.
What we know from the pandemic, we had an economic downturn, right? So we can expect some of that same repeat stuff. But what was unique or different about this was the fact that everybody had to stay home. Everybody was working from home for the most part, right? Except for essential workers and things like that. Most people were working from their home. And what did we hear during that time period when people were working from home is they started to remodel their homes. They started to make their homes more comfortable, things like that. So what took the number one spot in 2020? Household goods. So household goods takes the number one spot in 2020, which is a significant change because food and beverage had been there since 2010. In 2020, we saw the household goods take over the number one spot. And it wasn't like food and beverage went down. Household goods went from 130 reported thefts in 2019 for CargoNet to 197. So big jump. Right. But food and beverage went from 166 to 190. So it's not like food and beverage went down. It still went up. And household goods just surpassed it.
California has led the nation in cargo theft incidents each year for about as long as most people involved in tracking theft can remember, and including Scott. While California's cargo theft activity did increase last year, it skyrocketed in a state that has historically had a lot of trouble with theft.
One of the other big significant changes that we saw in 2020 that's continued into 2021 is that for the first time, I've been around cargo theft and doing cargo theft for, roughly 25 years, give or take. First time that I can remember and that any of my other peers that are subject matter experts on this can remember, Texas took over the number one spot from California. California has been that number one spot as far back as we can remember. And that's a significant thing. But again, California didn't go backwards. They went from 199 reported thefts in 2019 to 222 reported thefts in 2020. So they didn't go backwards. But Texas went from 120 in 2019 to 232. In 2020, so a significant jump. Texas has a lot of the same things, the same ingredients that California has. You have a very big economy, a very strong economy. You have a port. you have population density. So you have kind of that perfect storm of there's a lot of cargo, there's a lot of supplies needed, you have a lot of arterial highways, you have the port city in Houston, all of that, big economy, a lot of movement of goods.
So that explains what's being stolen and where, but not how. Scott says that part of the equation can be tricky because it's always changing, but by and large, pilferage has been the most common tactic thieves have used in recent years. As Scott explains, pilferage is harder to detect because it takes an attentive driver to even notice that it happened before it's too late.
Pilferage is far and away reported, when you look at what's reported, is far and away above all other types of cargo theft. And pilferage is difficult. Pilferage is, just for the basic definition of it, is when they open the rear doors and they just take part of the load. They don't take the whole tractor, they don't take the whole trailer. And we know that really pilferage is the iceberg below the water. It's the majority of cargo theft that's out there. Full truckload theft gets more attention because it's a bigger dollar amount at one time, it's a bigger hit at one time, it's a bigger, they're taking a bigger action when they steal a full tractor and a full trailer, right? When they get into the rear doors and they take half a pallet or part of a pallet or something like that, a lot of the times the difficulties you have around that is if you take the scenario of a driver leaving California and going to Texas, that driver is going to stop multiple times along that route. Mm-hmm. Now, unless that driver does a complete walk around of their tractor and trailer and inspects it before they take off each and every time, they may never know when the rear doors were opened. Right. Because most of the time when they open them, they take those boxes out, they close them back up. So now they get to Texas and they realize that they're half a pallet short, but they're not really sure where that happened. Mm-hmm. So they don't really know where to report it.
There are a number of things fleets can do to protect themselves from cargo thieves. The best thing is simply raise awareness among your employees, and that includes your dock and warehouse workers and truck drivers, and just so they know what to look for and what to do to best prevent theft. There's also security devices and technologies that can be used that add more layers of security to your equipment.
Good process and procedures, meaning don't leave your loaded trailers in unsecured areas. Mm-hmm. If you do have to leave your tractor and trailer in an unsecured area and the tractor is going to be married to the trailer, then you're going to want to use, theft prevention devices like air cuff locks on the tractor so that they can't move the tractor. And then if the tractor is married to the trailer and you have high security rear door locks on the trailer doors, you're making it a much harder target. Ideally, again, you don't want to park it in an unsecured area, but if you have to, let's secure it. Let's make it a harder target. Mm-hmm. If the trailer's not going to be married to the tractor, then let's get landing gear locks on it. Let's get kingpin locks on it. So that's the first layer, right? The good process and the good procedures. Do you have a red zone policy in place? Meaning, when your driver goes to pick up the cargo, have they already fueled? Are they fully rested? Do they have enough hours available for them to drive the first 200, 250 miles without stopping? Because we know that cargo thieves will do surveillance on the distribution centers and the pickup places and the warehouses, and they'll follow the drivers out in hopes that the driver is going to stop for their fuel or for their rest, in a short distance after they pick up. So if you put those good process and procedures in place, we're going to pick it up, we're going to drive 200 miles, 250 miles. Do they still sometimes follow that far? Sure. But not the majority of the time. You're going to eliminate a good number of those opportunities if you have those good process and procedures in place. If you do have to stage the loads, is it in a secured lot? If it's not, do you have those procedures, those security devices in place? And then we go to the next layer, which is the addition of technology, which you mentioned. Mm-hmm. Do you have tracking in the trailer? Do you have tracking in the cargo? Do you have both? Some companies will actually do redundancy where the shipper will actually put tracking in the cargo because they know the trucking company has tracking in the trailers. And then again, if you're parking it, are you using the geofencing capabilities that are available to you in that tracking device? Are you setting up alerts so that if that tractor and trailer moves before the driver is scheduled to take off on the trip, you're going to get an alert? And then when you get that alert, what are your capabilities? Who are you going to call?
Timing also plays a part in cargo theft activity. While there's always a threat of it happening, anytime you have a long weekend due to a holiday, or several days in a row when a loaded truck might be sitting, that risk increases.
Yeah, part of it is that they're sitting the extra day. Part of it is that the thieves know that they'll have an extra day to get away with it, right? That if they steal it early in that long weekend, or even if they steal it on the second day, they're going to get that extra day that they can use to move the cargo or make the cargo disappear. So we've traditionally seen bumps on any long weekend, whether it's Memorial Day, 4th of July, you name it, right? Thanksgiving weekends, all that. Mm-hmm. As you said, we get the alerts, we get the warnings, we get the good process and procedures. And what do all those alerts tell us? They all tell us some pretty good information that's based around what we've been talking about, the good process and procedures. Try not to load in advance, too far in advance. If you do have to load, try and park it in a secured place. If you can't park it in a secured place, make sure you're securing the tractor and the trailer. Use covert tracking when you can. That consistent approach is going to get you through everything, whether it's a normal weekend or a 3-day weekend or a 4-day weekend. That's going to be your best chance at getting through all of it. Nothing is 100%, right? We know this, but having those things in place is what's going to sustain you the best that you can through a normal weekend or a long holiday weekend. But we certainly see an increase traditionally in cargo theft over the long holiday weekends because of the things that you mentioned. Sometimes the cargo is going to be sitting longer, and also because they know they have an extra day to get away with it and disappear.
That's it for this week's 1044. You can read more on ccjdigital.com. As always, you can find the 1044 each week on CCJ's YouTube channel. And if you've got questions, comments, criticisms, or feedback, please hit us up at 1044trucking@gmail.com or give us a call at 404-491-1380. Until next week, everybody stay safe and keep that cargo secure.